Okay, once again, welcome. This is the District 1 Public Works Integrating Committee workshop for the fiscal year 27 State Capital Improvement Program preparation workshop. My name is Elaine Price. I am with the Cuyahoga County Commission, and I am the liaison for coordinating this process. We're not going to do introductions of everyone, but I do want to introduce the key players, and that would be our staff review team as well as our state representatives. So, Nick, I'll start with you if you just want to introduce who you are.
Yeah, my name is Nick Rose. I am the OPWC program representative for District 1. I also have districts 9, 13, 15, and 17 and cover those districts for Clean Ohio as well. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
Great. Thanks, Nick. I'll turn to the team. We'll start with Matt and then hop over to Tony and then Paul.
Yeah, good morning, or good afternoon, I guess, at this point. I'm Matt Pastrelli. I'm the staff representative from Cuyahoga County.
Tony.
No, this is, I did that. I go voting
My
like
name's
this.
Tony Armagno, staff representative. I work for the city of Berea.
Great. Thanks. And Paul, are you here?
I don't vote in bridges.
I'm here, Elaine. My name is Paul Fatika. I work for the city of Cleveland, and I'm the staff representative, the third staff representative.
Great. Thanks so much. So we will ask if you would mute yourselves during the presentation. I am picking up some background noise, and I'm going to share my screen. And I've got 3 screens, so I'm working to get the mouse. Okay. Let me explain a little bit about what we want to cover this year. What I don't want to do is to go over every single part of the entire process. So we're really going to do an overview of the program. Nick is going to help lead on that. And then we are going to talk to, let's see. I'm having trouble getting us into slideshow mode. Give me a second. Oh, are you seeing slideshow mode? No, okay. That is because my computer wants to do the preview. Are you seeing slideshow mode now?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So what we're going to cover, let's see which one's going to click it. We're going to do a quick overview. We are going to then really focus on what's new and different. And then we're going to go through clarifications and key tips. So we really looked at what are some of the points that we noted by going through the process last year that were either common errors or opportunities for improvements. So we're going to cover those and then questions and answers. And we'll actually do questions and answers along the way. So sound good? Okay. So Nick, I'm going to turn it over to you and you just tell me when you want me to advance the slides.
Sounds good. Thank you, Elaine. So this is our homepage. The Ohio Public Works Commission oversees various infrastructure programs for the state of Ohio. That pretty much all of the information about our programs and how we operate can be found on our website, as well as templates for the required documents. And that button circled right there, that's how you could subscribe to our newsletter, our mailing list, and we'll send out updates that way to you. It's how you can stay informed. We can go to the next one, Elaine. OPWC administers 2 programs on behalf of the state of Ohio, the State Capital Improvements Program, or SCIP, and the Local Transportation Improvement Program. The SCIP program is funded through the sale of general obligation bonds and is authorized by the voters every 10 years. It recently passed in May with nearly 70% of the vote, its highest percentage yet, which is awesome. We also have the revolving loan program that is through the SCIP program. There's a set of there used to be a SCIP set aside for loan money that had to be set aside. We don't have that requirement anymore, but that loan money, when it got repaid, would come back to the district in the form of the revolving loan program, and that money could then be reused for additional infrastructure programs. So since the loan money went to grant funds, that will level out eventually, but right now we have a pretty solid amount of loan funds left and continue to come back. Through LTIP, that's just funded through a portion of the gasoline tax, and it's only for roads and bridges. Go to the next one. You can go to the next one, Elaine. Thank you. So for SCIP eligibility, only local governments are eligible for this one, but since SCIP allows for water projects and wastewater projects, sanitary districts and regional water and sewer districts are also eligible for SCIP funds. You can go to the next one. And LTIP, since this is just a program for roads and bridges, water projects and water adjacent municipalities are not eligible for that. So it's just local governments. You can go to the next one, Elaine. For SCIP, we fund up to 90% of the cost for repair and replacement projects, 50% for new infrastructure. The distinction between those is left up to each individual district. Loans are for up to 100% of the project cost, 0% interest. Can be up to 30 years, but cannot exceed the weighted useful life of the project. Another little known aspect of our funding is loan assistance. This is a grant that will pay the construction period interest on either a public or private loan. It can be applied to any infrastructure loan for which construction began within 3 years prior to the release of the OPWC project agreement. That's July 1st every year. And OPWC will either pay the authorized lending institution directly or reimburse the grant recipient. Go to the next one, Lane. Okay. So eligible costs for both of these, when you go to fill out the application, you'll be asked to fill out a budget. And these are the eligible costs. We do not fund just engineering and design projects, and we typically cap that at 20% of the total project costs. And with engineering and design, you're not allowed to exceed the amount that you budget. So that's capped at that amount. However, with construction and other costs, you can go over as long as all of the expenses are within the scope of the project. To do a scope change, that would have to go back to the committee, and they would have to approve that, and we would issue an amendment. All right, you can go to the next one, Elaine. So funding through our programs are allocated to 19 local districts, each with an integrating committee that scores and ranks the projects based on a methodology of their making. There are 5 single county districts, and District 1 is one of them. Each district has a integrating committee makeup specific to their needs. That is determined through the Ohio Revised Code. District 1 has 2 county reps, 2 reps from the most populous municipality, 2 from the suburbs, and 1 from the private sector. And That should be it.
I think that's it. So, and yeah, we have new officers this year. So Bonnie Teelwin of Cleveland is our new chair, and Mayor Paul Kumar of Bay Village is our new vice chair. So let's pause for a moment. Does anyone have any questions for Nick about the overall program? Okay, seeing none, let's kind of move on.
I had a question. I was trying to
Sure.
unmute myself.
Great, go
So I am from a local nonprofit. So unfortunately, a nonprofit would be ineligible to apply. But I'm wondering if I were to partner with our local council person, would I be able to obtain these dollars for the neighborhood that I represent?
Yeah, you could, as long as that, the community would have to be the applicant, and then they would apply for the funds, and you would be able to help them create that application, and we could secure the funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Sure, great. Okay, here's what we're working with this year. So we're pleased. The successful issue 2 was passed, and so the program continues. We're looking at almost $22,000 in the SCIP grant program. And as Nick mentioned, in the past, there used to be a requirement to take 10% of the grant allocation and put it into the loan program. That requirement was removed last year, and we had quite a bit of money in the revolving loan program. So the DOPWIC committee has decided to not make that a requirement for a couple of years, and we're going to watch how our revolving loan funding value changes before we start to reinstitute that. And then the local transportation program, we've got about 7 million in, and you can see the revolving loan, we have just under 7 million. So 35 million, a little over 35 million to be working with in this round. So that's great. That's more than last year. Small government, this is exciting as well. When this was being renewed, some of the elected officials decided they wanted to put an emphasis on rural communities. So they've increased the amount of money for the small government program up to 30 million per year is expected for the next couple of years. Emphasis on rural communities and townships. So small government communities are those with populations less than 5,000. In the past, we have been, and this is money above and beyond our funding allocation, and the project selection is done at the state level. So any of our projects are recommended downstate, and they're competing with other state projects. But in the past, we've only been able to submit 5 projects. Now we can submit 7 projects plus 2 contingency projects. So we can be recommending 9 projects to go into the state competition. So if you are a small government, really get some good project applications in. We really want to be competitive in this area. Again, there is a small government commission that ultimately scores and picks the projects. There is this 30-day cure period to update, once the projects have been submitted down to the state, there is a 30-day period to kind of update some of the data because it may have changed from the time that the application was originally submitted. And then the state picks the small government projects in the spring. Okay, here is our schedule for District 1. So the most important thing is September 11th. That is the date, 4:30 in the afternoon, by which your applications need to be in. And again, applications are all done through the state's WorkWise portal. So you have to get your information uploaded into that by 4:30 on September 11th. Today is obviously the 16th. We're doing this workshop. We are also going to hold 2 office hours, Wednesday and Thursday at the end of the month. These are going to be 30-minute or more sessions if needed, in which you need to register. You'll get a Zoom link just like you did for this. And it's just an open session. You click in, let us know your questions, your specific questions, and the team will do our best to answer them. If we have a lot of people show up, we'll go more than 30 minutes. Okay. And then, the project ranking happens in December. Monday, December 15th would be the date for appeals to come in. And then the DOPWIC committee will meet on January 27th to review the recommendations of the staff. Okay. Okay, so what's new? Nick, I talked about the more funding for small governments, issue 2. And Linda.
Yeah. Yeah, issue 2 passed in May with great numbers. That renews it for another 10 years. And I think you covered the small government funding. That was pretty much it. I think the set aside goes from 10% to 12%, so it's going to be 30 million. And we will, I believe it's a request for temporary law, and then we're just going to go back and request that for any temporary law going forward, every biennium. And we have no new updates in WorksWise, but just make sure that you have your accounts ready to go by the time you're going to apply in WorksWise. And that the emails and project officials are up to date, because if they aren't receiving accurate, they won't receive their project agreement otherwise. And yeah, our director, Linda Bailiff, will be retiring here come November, I believe. So we will be on the hunt for a new director coming soon, and we wish her the best. That's pretty much
Great.
it.
Thanks. Okay, for us here in District 1, just a couple of things. In the past, so you fill out the WorksWise application, and then we require what we call the supplement. And the supplements are divided between road, bridges, and culverts questions, or the water stuff, sewer, septic, wastewater, and water. In the past, there have been 4 supplements. So if you are a large community, we refer to your projects as a standard project. If you are a small government community, we would refer to you as a small government project. So in the past, there were 4 supplements, 2 of each that you can see on the screen, plus then 2 more specifically for small government. It's all the same stuff. So we have merged them so that any small government application information is at the end of each of these regular supplements. Okay. So the other thing, this is not new. Many of you should know this, is that what we need to review your project is one file that has been combined with the WorksWise application, your supplement, and all of your supporting documentation. So all that supporting stuff you need to upload into WorksWise as individual documents, because you have to categorize it, letters of support, financial certifications, etc. But we need that all combined into one document. And we need you to put into the title of that file the phrase "full combined." And explain why. Our team has to go onto the WorksWise website, find your application, pick the correct file, download it to our computers so that we have it when we do the review. If you simply combine all your stuff and just call it by your project name, then we have to open a bunch of files to find out which is the right one. So please use the phrase "full combined" for the file that has everything in it. Use the name of your community. And if your community is supporting more than one application, put in your project name. It's a good idea to put in your project name anyways, but if it gets really long, start to abbreviate your project name. But again, if your community is submitting more than one application, make sure that your full combined file notes which project that's for. Okay. And then the third thing is, again, for small governments, is we have created a worksheet within the supplement so that we can see, we need all of your small government applications to show your math and give your rationale explanations for your self-score. And I'll go over that again in a little bit. Okay. Okay. So again, to get to our materials, you go to our county planning website, and that's just countyplanning.us. Under the menu for services, click on that, open it up to get to grant programs. Once you get there, you're going to see the state infrastructure, which is what we're talking about today, as well as the Clean Ohio. You click on the state infrastructure, and that's going to open up the landing page. And to the right, on the right-hand side, is essentially the menu. So we've simplified it this year. So there's a section for announcements. Anything that's new coming up or changed, we will put under announcements. You can click on the tab for the schedule. And then under application materials, you will find the various documents that we're talking about. Also, we have the roster of our committee members and then historical information. So you can go look at what has been funded in the past. Okay, that's just how you get to the materials there. The DOPWIC application materials on that page, when you click under there, you're going to find the applicant manual. That's probably your most important document. Make sure that you download that. We have not made a lot of, or we haven't made any organizational changes to it, but we have put in a lot of clarifying language. The applicant manual is what you use when you're filling out the supplement. Okay. And so it gives the explanation of definitions and how you do calculations and what sources of information are acceptable. So please use that applicant manual. The policy manual has not changed. That's really a document that governs how we operate. There's not going to be much in there for helping you get through the application process. And then there are the supplements. So if your project, if your primary project is about roads, bridges, or culverts, you use that supplement. If it's about anything that has to do with water, you use the second one. And then we also have the self-scoring worksheet, which is optional, but we recommend that you use it where you are listing what you think. It's just one page in which you think what your score should be for each of the different categories. Okay, then we also have references to the Ohio Public Works Commission application materials. So you can go to the homepage. There's the WorksWise page. That's important for you to get in. Make sure your account is current, as Nick said. And then under WorksWise resources, you'll also find training manuals and training materials. So if you're less familiar with WorksWise or you need reminders, you can get that there. In addition, we have put in here links to the small government materials. So that small government application materials is get you to their homepage. The applicant manual is critical because it describes how you assign your, the answers to your criteria. They tell you how many points to give yourself. It's in the methodology. It also has the median household income data that is current, and you have to use the current data, not stuff from past applications, and also population data and a few other things. Okay. Okay, so the applicant supplements, simplified them a little bit, as I said. Road, bridges, and culverts, the purple one, and the bluish gray one is the water one. And again, we combine this with the small government stuff. So if you are not a small government, both small government communities and standard communities pick your supplement. If you are not a small government, if you're a standard project, when you get to page 15, you're done. When you go to page 16, it says stop, you're done. If you are a small government, then you need to continue. Okay. The next couple of pages are what we've had in the past, descriptions of what you need to do. Small government, you need to go to the small government website. You need to use their forms. You need to use their self-scoring system. But one of the things that we have added this year is what we're calling the small government rationale worksheet. And let me just go through this again. And I'm going to ask those of you who are not small government to bear with us for just a few more slides as we walk through this. In the past, all we get is the score sheet that for the 11 criteria where the applicant has said, I think I should get this many points for criteria 1 and for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's all we have to go on to rank our projects, to pick the ones to then send downstate for submission. if there's a chance that the applicant either misinterpreted or made a mistake in their scoring, it can really affect other projects or that applicant. So for example, if someone did a calculation incorrectly or used the wrong piece of information and gave themselves lower points, they may be below the line when they actually should be above the line and should be submitted downstate. The reverse is true as well. If someone gives themselves more points than what the state thinks they're going to get for that criteria, they may bump a different project below the line, which actually should be recommended for funding. So the scoring team has a responsibility for looking at how all of these criteria are scored. And if we catch something that we think is unclear or a mistake, that gives us time. That gives us that 5-day period to get back in touch with the applicant to say, hey, we think you made a mistake here. Why don't you redo it, so that we know we get the best scores, because the state is going to do their own scoring. And so we want to make sure that the projects we are promoting are really based on the scoring that the state is going to do. So we created a fillable PDF worksheet. I'm just going to go through it very quickly. But this is the one from the road bridges culvert example. It's very similar. The water one will be slightly different, but the criteria are: the first is ability and effort score. So again, think about the various things that go into the ability and effort. Show your math, show what your percentage is, and then give yourself score. Okay. And again, the ability and effort for water projects, for those of you who are doing it, that score actually comes from the state. But if you have applied for water projects in the past and you have an ability and effort score from the state for a past project, put that in, so it gives us a rough number to at least work off of. The second criteria is the health and safety. So again, give the rationale, and what's listed here are the various components that go into describing why there's a health and safety issue and what needs to be done. So put your rationale into this section here, and then your self-score. Criterion 3 is based on age as well as condition. Put in the age. Again, the methodology book will tell you what score to give based on the age. And then I've actually put in here under condition, you can see if it's a new expansion, you get 1 point. If it's just an expansion, you get 2 points. If it's in poor condition, you get 3, etc. So put an X in the right box, because that helps us see which score you should be getting. Leveraging ratio, same thing. I mean, show the math to give the score. Your population benefit is number of users as a percentage of your population. Put those numbers in so we can see them. Criterion number 6, do not score yourself. That's where the small government committee gives points based on looking at all of the projects that have been submitted to us. Criterion 7 is the percentage, the amount of funding that you're asking for. You cannot get any more than 500,000. I'm not sure why the state even includes that, because that'd be 0 points. But there's really these 3 categories depending on. So people who are asking for less get more points. And then loan request, if that is a percentage, if you're asking for a grant and loan, the percentage there gives different points. The useful life of the project, again, those are the breakdowns and the points associated with them. And median household income. Okay, this is one where there was variation last year. So you calculate the median household income. The small government website has links to actually take you to the web pages. You look up your community and you put in your community's median household income. The state median household income is $69,680 for this cycle. That's the number you use in the math. Please don't pluck a number from a prior year's application. Okay, you need to use the right number there. And then finally, readiness to proceed has to do with the status of your plans and status of funding. Okay, So all we're looking for here is we need more precision, not just a score. We need to know, have you show us how you arrived at the points that you had if you are a small government applicant. Does anyone have any questions about this so far? Anything in the chat, Matt?
No, Elaine, there's nothing in the chat yet.
Okay, great. Okay. So again, this is just a clip from the state's OPWC's small government self-score. So again, this is what we've been looking at in the past. It's just you put in the score. You do need to fill out this form because on the state website, this is a fillable PDF that actually totals at the bottom. So you do want to actually use that form. And then again, you will take this form and integrate it into your full and combined file that the review team will be looking at. Okay. So it sounds like we didn't have any questions. Okay, so we're going to move on to just clarifications, key sections, and tips. So the application supplement have these different sections: primary infrastructure, project description, users infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. These are all things that you fill out. The ones that we saw either had the most questions about or saw common errors were these 5. So we're going to kind of talk just about those. So again, use the manual if you've never done this before to read the instructions for all these other sections. I'm not going to go through every section today, but I do want to talk about some of these. Okay. Some common errors, things that flag right away, is your construction contingency dollars. Okay, and that comes from the OPWC application. It cannot exceed 10%. So one of the first things we look at when we're looking at your application is that construction contingency over 10%? That's an immediate kick out, and we have to get it back to you right away so that you can get that changed. Okay. The second one was a construction start date. Your construction start date has to be between July 1 of next year, the program year, and June 30th of 2027. That's another quick kick out if it doesn't fit within that time frame. Multi-jurisdictional projects is a category for which you can get a point. So that is if your community is partnering with another community to do a project. A utility does not count as a partner. Okay, so you cannot say we're doing a project and we're working with First Energy or even Cleveland Water Department. That is not a project partner. That may be someone that is doing the project with you, but that does not constitute multi-jurisdictional. Okay. Please give us your supporting documentation that is very specific to your project. And please don't include generic or unrelated materials. I'll give a couple of examples and we'll go through this page, and then I'm going to ask our review team to chime in as well. If you have worked with, let's say, a consultant firm to do some type of study of your infrastructure, and one chapter on that infrastructure has to do with your sewer pipes, and maybe there's 5 pages of that one chapter that actually show the condition of your sewer pipes. Please don't send us the 200-page document. All we need is to know the title of the report, who did the report, contact information for the report, when the report was done, and then those specific pages that support whatever it is you're trying to support. In my example, infrastructure condition. Okay. When we talk about users and benefits, we all know that we've got one of the best metro park systems in the country, and we've got a great national park. Please don't include brochures that talk about the national park or how great the metro parks are. We already know that. For those of you doing water projects, we all know that every drop of stormwater or discharge wastewater eventually gets into Lake Erie, which is one of the Great Lakes. Please don't claim that you have 12 million users for your project, because that is the number of people who use the Great Lakes. That's not unique to your project, okay? Those are just a couple things that come up. And then the other is the engineer certification. You really need to have the engineer's name. We have to have a signature, we have to have a date, and we have to have that stamp. So sometimes some of those pieces have been missing, and that's another kick out. For small government projects, there is a unique engineer certification form. You need to do that in addition to any of the ones that are in the supplement, okay? So I'm going to open it up to Matt, Tony, and Paul. Just want to jump in on any of these points.
Well, and I think you covered it pretty well. I guess I would just reiterate on the additional materials and supporting documents that when it, make sure that you highlight or only include the information that's relative to the project if you're providing some type of report, because often we get full reports and we have trouble finding exactly where the relevant information is.
Thanks, Tony.
Sure. Elaine, we do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
And Nick, I think this might be for you. Are we able to apply for funding to purchase property needed to build a new turn lane?
We can assist with the easement to do that, but any project has to be done on publicly owned or on an easement that's owned by a public entity.
Good. Thank you, Nick.
Good. Matt, did you have any additional comments?
No, just reiterating what Tony said. Just make it eye-popping so it's easy for us to find. We're busy just like everybody else is, and if you can kind of pinpoint us to the point that makes to the info that makes your case, it's a little bit easier on us on the review end.
Thanks. Paul?
I have no more information. I guess maybe crash data, make sure you calculate that correctly. We sometimes have to go back and correct it to match the correct formula.
Great, thank you for that. That's a good lead in, because in a couple slides, Matt's actually going to walk us through how to do crash data. Great. Okay. A slight format change in the describing your project. We have a section on project description or existing conditions, and then we have a section on proposed changes. And we really need you to separate the two. In the past, it felt like we would read the existing condition one and then it was all repeated in the proposed changes. So we've actually shortened the amount of space that you have. So in your existing condition, really describe what is the situation or the problem that currently exists that you are trying to solve. And in your proposed changes section, be very clear in describing what this project is going to do and how the project will fix or resolve the situation or the problem that you described above. If you have a complicated project and you absolutely need more space, you can attach an additional section so that you can write more. But we're really trying to get everybody to focus so that the existing condition is not reading like the proposed changes and vice versa. Okay. Okay. Users. For roadway, it is the average daily traffic, and it's important to use the correct sources, and those are listed in the manual. And so it's ODOT sources, and if you do your own count, it again has to be certified by an engineer who did it. And if you have multiple roads, you have to do weighted average on the average daily traffic for the different roads. Okay. Under water, there's direct users. However, if you also have, we've had a couple of projects where there might have been a commercial or an educational building that was a part of it. And you can count, for example, the number of employees, the number of students who are in that building into your user count. Okay. Please use maps to show your user area. And for water projects, also show your flow direction using arrows. So we have had to go back and forth on some projects to really get clarification on direct and indirect users based on the project area and which way the water, that's typically wastewater, which way it's flowing. Tony, Matt, or Paul, any comments on this stuff? Okay. Infrastructure age and condition. We really need supporting documentation. So, for example, if you're talking about improving, let's say, sewers in a subdivision, if you don't have specific information for when those sewers were installed, but it's very logical to think that they were put in when that subdivision went in, try to find documentation for the subdivision. And if not that, then you have to do at least a sampling using the county's real estate website, the My Place website, of identifying a good representative sampling of houses and look at for when those were built. Okay. So similar things like that. Pavement condition ratings, again, like the ADTs, you have to use the acceptable sources. And again, we need to show weighted averages if you have either multiple roads or multiple sections of roads. Okay. For water lines, one of the common errors that we saw were people not using the 5-year break rate, but using the first break rate they saw on their documents from Cleveland Water. I'm going to show you an example of that, and then Matt has an example as well. And also, you have to do the break rates for your project section, not for a big long run of street that might go beyond your project section. So this was an example we had from one of our communities. So this is kind of a typical report that you can get from Cleveland Water Department. And your eyes might jump up here to this number of 7 number of breaks. Okay, but you have to look at the line below it. That means that was 7 breaks over 36.5 years. Okay, so that's not so don't use the 7. Come down here where it says recent break rate trend. This is the exhibited number of break rates over the last 5 years. Okay, so that's 2. So this is an example that we had from one of our communities where they were seeking funds to redo water lines on 5 different streets. So they used the formula and they calculated the break rate for each street. So just using East 85th, which is what we saw before, was 2 breaks over the 1,000-foot main out of 5,280 feet total of all of these. 5 years gave them the break rate of 2.11. Okay, so they calculated the break rates using that method for each of those streets. And then the overall was, again, the break rate times the length for that section for each of those added up and then divided by the total length of the project to give them the 1.29 break rate. Okay. So, keep that in mind. That was a common thing that we saw of using the wrong break rates or not using them for the right sections. Okay, before I go on, again, Tony, Matt, or Paul, any other comments on those topics? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Elaine, I do. If you could go back a couple of slides to the first one in this section before we got to the Cleveland Water Department thing. So right here, supporting documentation for age and condition. So one thing to note real quick, we only accept PCRs. We do not accept PCIs. So please make sure you submit a PCR rating. If you don't have one, I know some of the communities, Tony said Berea does get PCIs, but we have to kind of get that back into a PCR rating. So it will need to be in that format, not the PCI. Also, with respect to bridges and culverts, when you're giving supporting documentation on the infrastructure age, please try to find plans. Don't use the inspection report. If you're familiar with bridge inspection reports, if there's an unknown age on a culvert, or if someone has filled out the inventory incorrectly, they just put a blanket date down that'll say July 1st of some year, and it's generally a random year that's kind of picked. And at the county, we typically have, for the most part, if we don't have a culvert or something in that system, we have something close, and we can kind of tell when they're put in close. And the same with ODOT. But you should be able to find that document or that infrastructure age from the plans. Please don't use that inspection report. That information is not always correct.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And can I also say, Matt, that people can contact the county for help in getting that information?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we have the information, I mean, there's been a handful of projects in the couple of years I've been doing this where I've been able to dig it up pretty quickly. So it's just a matter of reaching out to us. You know, we had a project last year that was submitted, and it was a culvert that I've personally inspected, and some of the information that was given was, 8 to 10 years old, and we have a lot more current stuff than that.
Appreciate that, because we want you all to have the best applications possible. So, okay. Tony or Paul, anything? Good. Okay. Thanks, Matt. That was helpful. So let me just catch up here. Okay. A couple things on health and safety stuff. For sewer and septic, basement backup reports. Those are good. However, it's really important to only use those if they're actually related to the problem that you're trying to solve. So an example we saw is that a community really was doing some sewer work in the street, but the basement backups were apparently being caused by tree roots in the front yard of private property getting into the laterals, which is the responsibility of the homeowner. So changing and improving the sewer in the street isn't going to stop a basement backup if it's not going to change the tree roots that are getting into the lateral from the house. So think about that and just make sure that it's really clear. For septic and for wastewater and discharges, if you have exceedances, if you're using exceedances as part of your health and safety rationale, that's fine. We need to see your permit. We need to see what the permit limits are, and we need to see the analytical data showing where you are relative to those limits. Okay. For crash rates, Paul mentioned crash rates before, and again, it's using the correct tools and analyses, and also roadway versus intersections. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk through. Matt, I rearranged your slide a little bit so I could get the font a little bit bigger.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Elaine. Specifically with respect to the roadway segment crash rate, one of the biggest, I guess, kind of mistakes that we see is that communities will submit for the full crash rate. I'm sorry, for the full amount of crashes over that whole entire segment. And what needs to be taken out are the intersection crash rates. So we're looking just for a straight segment calculation in this. And you'll see down here on the bottom right that the total crashes in that selected area was 244. But the ones that need to be pulled out are the four-way intersections, the 5-point intersections, the T intersections, traffic circle roundabouts, and things like that. So only use the crashes not at an intersection, or some of the ones that are in the data not valid or not provided. But you will need to go through each one of those crash rates or crash reports and make sure that they are on the segment and not in an intersection. Sometimes those data not valid ones actually are if you've got a road that's adjacent to a highway. Sometimes you'll pop open that police report and you'll see that the thing was actually on the highway, just very, very close. And the GPS coordinating system, when it popped into GCAT, kind of had it off slightly. But so anyways, you can kind of see I ran through the calculation. There's the formula from the manual that we look for. And kind of down below, you see there's 135 crashes not at an intersection for this. And for the sake of this calculation, I did not go through these 24, but we used 24 that were not provided. So it's 159 crashes that we used, not the 244. So in this case, also the road that I selected here for this example did have a weighted average for the ADT that we had to calculate, and that came out to that 12,655. So that was the ADT that was used. So you can kind of see, running through that math, this section came up with a 6.17 crashes per million vehicle miles traveled, which is pretty significantly high. But it's just a matter of making sure you pull out those crashes that are intersecting crashes and just go strictly with the segment stuff. So
Let's pause and see if there's any questions about this. Anyone have any questions on crash rate? Matt, can you talk, is this where there's a few new tools that ODOT has?
yeah, so I don't know if you guys are all aware, but ODOT has recently gone over to the AASHTO safety program for just the GCAT type stuff, just for the crash analysis. If you've used that program, it is significantly better than the old GCAT system. You can do multiple NLFIDs all at the same time. Pulling a crash data for a segment for an area is, I mean, I can pull all this information and pop it into the CAM tool in under 5 minutes now. It's very robust, and I would encourage you to go to ODOT's Tim's website, and they'll have a link over to it. But the current GCAT system that we've all been using to get these crash rates is only going to be operable through the either to September or through September. So this will be the last year that the information is available. Next year, you'll have to strictly go through AASHTO safety.
So look into that soon. Matt, I'm assuming that is, people need to register and create an account to use that?
Correct. There's directions on how to do that all through Tim's, as well as some links to previous training classes and some dates for upcoming training sessions as well.
Great. Thank you. And Matt, you did a water break rate. Do you want to run through that real quickly? Just reinforce what I talked about?
Yeah, I mean, so to reiterate what Elaine said, what she said was perfect. So the biggest common flaw that we see in these is that people just pull that blanket break rate right there, that 0.38. And that, again, is over the duration of the breaks as shown below, above, which is that 37 years. So you will need to actually pull out and do your own calculation. And that's using that exhibited number of breaks in the last 5 years. So Cleveland Water does provide the breaks on the segment requested in the last 5 years, but you will have to go and do your own break rate calculation, because that break rate calculation that's shown is over the full length of time that Cleveland Water has been servicing that main.
Okay. Very good. Okay. I'm going to move on. Again, these are the kind of a list of the application materials. Nick, a lot of this is your stuff, and I'm actually move on this one. Can you just make a comment on what are some of the items that you find yourself chasing down as well?
This last round and last couple rounds, a lot of times the authorizing legislation is something we've had to go after. We really want to see, and we've started to crack down on that recently, from advice from our legal counsel, just that we need to make sure that each subdivision is properly authorized by its council to enter into an agreement with OPWC. So we look for that the authorizing legislation gives the authority to execute agreements as well as apply. So those are really the two things that the authorizing legislation needs to do. And it also needs to be executed and passed by the council. CFO certification, that needs to certify the full dollar amount of local match. And if you're not including, if you have external funding sources, then we either need some sort of funding commitment letter or a list that shows that funding is secured if you're not including that in your CFO certification, and that does need signed by the CFO. And another thing is the resolution of intent. If your project has a loan component, and at any point during the life of the project, you want to seek reimbursement with loan funds, that resolution of intent needs to be passed by the council within 60 days of the construction. So I just recommend doing that immediately so it's out of the way. Even if you're not seeking reimbursement, you never know, you might need to down the line. So I recommend just passing that immediately if you have a loan component. When it comes to the engineer's estimate and weighted useful life statement, we just need to see those stamped. And those just need to verify the costs that are being applied for in the application. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks, Nick. So again, pay attention to those details, because what we're finding is we're chasing this stuff down after the fact and trying to get it all in. Okay. Nick, if you could just talk briefly, I mean, everyone can go through training on the OPWC, but once you fill out the application, then you have to get a PDF version that, or a form that you could then integrate into this full and combined file. Nick, can you just walk people through how to do that?
Yeah, so once you go into WorksWise and you have your account all set up, that you can get a printable version of that. Pretty much once you submit, all your information will be in there. And then you can click that printable view button using the drop down arrow on the right, and it will give you a PDF version of the application. And also once you hit the submit button and then it goes to the slate, a PDF version of the application, a formatted version of the PDF is created as well for download, but that does not include your all of your required documents.
But again, is this something people can do before they submit so that they can then have that, mix it in with that full and combined, upload the full and combined so that it's there when you submit?
Yeah, that'll be that printable view button.
Right. Okay. And I've already talked about this, is then pull everything together, label it as I've asked you to label it, and then upload it into WorksWise so that we can kind of get to it. I mentioned before the WorksWise resources. So if you go on through the links that I showed you, or you go to the OPWC page and get into the state infrastructure, we're under WorksWise resources where it says online training. There's a lot of stuff there. So there's training manuals. There's a whole bunch of manuals you could look at. And then there's also training videos that you can watch for everything for, how to submit, and then also how to get your disbursements. So that's really helpful. Let's see what else we have. Nick, can you talk a little bit about how folks can access these emergency funds? Because they don't come through us. They go directly to you.
Yeah, for sure. So the emergency funding is another skip set aside for $12 million and is administered directly by the OPWC director. It is for projects that address immediate health and safety threats and are treated on a first come, first served basis. Year round, it's done on a rolling basis as long as funds are available. This is not for any infrastructure improvements. It's only to address damaged infrastructure from a catastrophic event. Road slips are a pretty common example. The ones pictured here are very extreme, but we do fund a lot of different types of emergency projects that result from storm events, rain events, just things collapsing. The way to do that is you will fill out a pre-application on our website. Well, you'll download the pre-application from our website, fill that out. We just need pictures of the event, or the damage, a weighted useful life statement, engineer's estimate, both stamped. You'll send those to me. I'll evaluate that, and then I'll talk to the director about it. And then the director will issue you a letter, either approving or not approving it. And then that will be your authorization to proceed. And due to the nature of emergency programs, you can proceed before the application is done in WorksWise. So what you'll do is once you get the authorization letter, then you'll put everything into WorksWise. I'll approve it, and the money will be out pretty quickly. But you can proceed immediately once you receive the approval letter from the director. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone have any questions for Nick on the emergency funds?
Yeah, I just had a quick question real quick. I'm sorry to, I forgot to hit unmute. So do you have to get the preliminary approval before you start the work, or is this something where you can get the work accomplished and get reimbursed for it?
You can get, yeah, you can get the work, you can start the work beforehand and then get reimbursed for it.
Okay.
That is of course pending the approval, but
Sure.
we do look back on that, due to the nature of these events. We're pretty
Okay.
lenient with that.
All right. And the causes you mentioned were all natural disasters, but does that apply to like major water line breaks as well? Or is, I know because for example, Cleveland Division of Water only covers up to a certain point, and we get left, repairing the rest of the damage.
Yeah, that's something we've done in the past too. And
Okay.
I think we did some stuff for Parma that was in that same boat. But the program is up to at the discretion of the director. But generally, if infrastructure has exceeded its useful life, or is broken as a result of neglect, then that would not be eligible. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Any other questions for Nick on that? Okay, almost there. So again, virtual office hours. So Wednesday, the 30th at 9 o'clock or Thursday, the 31st at 1. We're kind of setting these up as 30-minute sessions. They can go longer if needed. You do have to go onto our website and register like you did for this event so you can get the link. And basically, the team, we will be there and you just click in and ask us your questions and we will do the best that we can to answer those for you. Okay, so 2 different times for that. Questions and answers. That's at the end. There's my contact info and Nick's info. Anyone have any additional questions?
Just real quick, Elaine, I'm on your website right now. Oh, you know what? I just found it. Never mind. I was looking for the registration for that thing and I just didn't scroll down far enough. I found it.
That's good. Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Well, thanks everyone for participating. I'm looking for the button to stop the recording. There it is. Appreciate your help. Again, my contacts information there. Don't hesitate to call or email. I am still a little bit new to this. I don't have all the answers, but I know people who do, and happy to reach out and get information for you and advocate for. So we're looking for a lot of good projects to review. And again, especially if you are with a small government community, we're very much looking forward to seeing applications. Yes, Ron, I will make this PowerPoint presentation available and also the link. Once this gets uploaded and we turn it into a YouTube video, we will post the link for reviewing this recording as well. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your participation and look forward to helping you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you. Thank you very much.